The Detroit Pistons are 17-5 and at the top of the Eastern Conference due to a 13-game win streak. However, over the last 6 games, they have not looked like that team. On that win streak, they look like a completely different team.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Khahil. I've been covering the Detroit Pistons for the last 4 years for the Locked On Network, been a credential media member over the last 3 years, and I appreciate all of you guys who make Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. I also want to thank you guys for making the Locked On Podcast Network in general the number one sports podcast in America, or sports podcast network in America. Appreciate all of your guys' support. And also stay tuned for Monday. We have a nice surprise coming up Monday for all of you guys. I think a lot of you guys will very much love it. But stay tuned for that. Today, I want to talk about how has Jaden Ivey looked since he's come back. I also want to talk about why I am officially in the camp. I'm putting my flag down. I want the Pistons to trade for a 4. I think they have to trade for a 4. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But let's start with how this team has looked recently. The Detroit Pistons, like I said in the cold open, they are 17-5. They're at the top of the Eastern Conference. They've had a fantastic start to the season. They are in an absolutely fantastic position as of right now. But that doesn't mean you just ignore what's going on. It doesn't mean you ignore what's happened in games. It doesn't mean you ignore recent stretches. And you are constantly evaluating your position, your team. And the team that we are seeing the last 6 games is not the same team that we saw for the first, they've played 22, the first 16 games of the season. The team that we've seen the last 6 games are not playing like a 17-5 team. The team we've seen the last 6 games are not playing like a team that's at the top of the Eastern Conference. And if they continue playing like that, that first seed in the Eastern Conference will no longer be there, and they won't be a team that's plus 12 or a win-loss or on a way to, where are they at? They're on like a 55-win pace or something like that. They're not going. That's not what they're looking like. That's not how they're playing. I want to bring up the numbers to break it down. Before these last 6 games, I should say, the first 16 games of the season, the Pistons were very clearly a top defensive team with an identity, but they had made major improvements in multiple other areas. They ranked 2nd in the NBA in defensive rating through the first 16 games of the year. The only team ahead of them, which again this is a bonkers number every time I see it. Oklahoma City was the only team ahead of them. The Pistons had a 110 defensive rating. They were 2nd. The first best defensive team was 8 points better. OKC had a 102 defensive rating. That's just insane. I can't comprehend how that's even possible. That's insane. But the Pistons had the 2nd best defense in the league. They were dominating on the defensive end. However, they also had a top 10 offense. They had the 8th best offense in the entire NBA, and they were one of only 3 or 4 teams during that stretch that had a top 10 defense and a top 10 offense. Along with this, it wasn't just an offense that was being built off of, like last year, just off of transition. Now, a lot of it was still transition. A lot of it was fast breaks. A lot of it was turning turnovers into easy looks. Yes, that is going to be a main part of the Pistons' offense at all times, but that's not what it all was about the first 16 games of the year. The first 16 games of the year, the Pistons had a top 5 half-court offense. They were dominating teams in the half-court. So they were fine, and the reason why they went on such a win streak was because they were dominating every facet of the game. Defensively, they were dominating you. In the half court, they would dominate you. In fast break, transition opportunities, they would dominate you. On the glass, they were dominating you. Second chance points, winning the possession battle. They were winning literally every single area of the game that you could win. The Pistons were winning. In another area that I just mentioned, the possession battle, this was a pretty big deal. Last year, the Pistons were a terrible turnover team. They turned the ball over way too much. It was insane. But in the first 16 games of the year, instead of being one of the very worst teams when it comes to turn the ball over, they were just middle of the pack. They were right in the middle. They were 15th in turnover percentage at 14.9 turnover percentage. Middle of the league. So not only were they dominating you in all these other areas, they weren't giving you extra possessions. They weren't just giving the ball up. They were taking care of the ball good enough to dominate these other areas and win every single night. That was their identity. That's what they were doing. And that's why they were so good. That's why they are 17-5 right now. However, over the last 6 games, they look like a completely different team. Completely different team. They've went from the second best defense to the 9th best defense in the NBA over the last 6 games. They went from a top 10 offense to an 18th ranked offense with a 112.9 offensive rating. They went from 8th to 18th best offense in the NBA. They went from dominating their opponents and having the 4th best net rating in the NBA the first 16 games to being a team that's barely scraping by, and actually it's completely even. They have a 0.0 net rating. That is exactly 15th in the entire NBA. They are barely scraping by in their victories and giving up games at the end to games that they shouldn't lose. And we talked about the possession battle and talked about how they were doing so well with turnovers the first 16 games of the year. Listen to this. This is the big deal. This is by far the biggest number you need to take away. First 16 games, like I said, the Pistons had the 15th best turnover percentage in the entire NBA. 15th best. They had a 14.9% turnover percentage. Over the last 6 games, they've went from 15th, not to 20th, not to 21st, not to 22nd, not to 23rd, not to 24th, 25th, 26th. They've went to the very worst team. They are the worst team in turnover percentage over the last 6 games. They've went from middle of the pack, 15th, to the very worst. They have an 18.5 turnover percentage. The next closest team is Brooklyn at 17.1. They are the gap between the Pistons and Brooklyn is the same gap between the number 28 Utah and the number 15th ranked Indiana Pacers. That's the difference between the Pistons and how much they're turning the ball over between them and the next team as there is the 28th team to the 15th ranked team. So not only are they not the same defensive team right now, they're nowhere near the same offensive team. Forget the transition stuff. They're nowhere near the same offensive team in the half court. You look at the half court offense over the last 6 games, they have the 4th worst half court offense in the entire NBA. The only teams with a worse half court offense over the last 6 games is Toronto, Sacramento, and Atlanta. Those are the only teams with the worst half court offense over the last 6 games. This team that you're seeing the last 6 games doesn't look anything like the team that we saw the first 16 games of the year. And that's why I'm talking about it. And that's why I'm so concerned. Because it's not just you've lost some close games and you're still playing well, but other people are playing well and you're not going to win every game. No, they look like a completely different team. They're not playing anything like how they played. And they're struggling in a multitude of areas for 6 games now. Defensively, I'm not too concerned. Defensively, I think a lot of their struggles, and we've talked about this now ad nauseum on the podcast, I think a lot of it has to do with them extending the rotation and trying to fit so many people in. I think that's causing a lot of issues. But defensively, I'm not too concerned. I don't think anyone really should be concerned about their defense. I think we all agree, and I think everyone believes that the Pistons will be a top defense. It doesn't matter these 6 games. They are going to be a top defense. The problem is the offense and the turnovers. And what's coming with that is, again, I mentioned them playing so many guys in the rotation. I think is messing up everyone's comfortability with each other. But also, this all happened at the worst possible time because they're trying to bring guys back and get them incorporated into the team. And I don't think a lot of guys fit very well together. So they're trying to give guys enough of a rope to get back to peak shape. But I think they're figuring out in real time that a lot of these guys, and let me not say a lot, that's a lie. Some of these guys don't really fit well together, and it doesn't lead to very good offense. It leads to a lot of turnovers, and it's leading to very bad offense. The main reason why the Pistons half-court offense has been so bad the last 6 games is because they're turning the ball over a ton. That's the main reason. They've been without Duncan Robinson for a few of these games. That's the second reason. Without Duncan, you're not going to have that same kind of threat from beyond the arc, that same type of movement shooting. We know how important that is for the Pistons. So I think Duncan being out is killing them a little bit. The turnovers are absolutely the number one reason why their half-court offense has been so bad. And I think the third reason is that teams are adjusting to them and the Pistons aren't adjusting. Some of their players aren't adjusting back to how the defenses are adjusting to them. Like, I'll bring up a few examples. The main example I like to pull up with this is Jalen Duren. He's having a fantastic season. He's playing like an all-star. No, I'm not taking any of that away. He has been fantastic. He has been fantastic. However, I've mentioned this now over and over, teams are adjusting to now digging down and ripping down at the ball when he catches it in the short roll, or anytime he puts the ball on the ground, they're sending help and trying to strip the ball. And they weren't doing that to start the season, but now they're doing it. And it's leading to him turning the ball over more than he's assisting the ball. He has a negative assist to turnover ratio, and that's all coming within the half court, and that's leading the easy bucket for the other team. I think that's a main reason. The other main reason, obviously, is Cade has 2 games of 6+ turnovers. That's just horrific. Cade has to be much better with the basketball, has to take better care of the ball. But they got to figure something out. They got to turn this around. They've got to figure out who they want to play, who's a main part of the rotation, who fits together, what lineups actually fit together, instead of just throwing guys together on the floor. They need to figure that out, and they need their better players to now adjust to what defenses are doing. But they need to do this quickly because, this is now 6 games now when they look nothing like the team that we believe that they are. They don't look like anywhere close to a team that's 17-5 the last 6 games. It's not going from, oh, you're one of the best teams to, okay, they're playing like the 8th best team. No, they went from one of the best teams in the NBA to the very worst team in turning the ball over, a middle-of-the-pack team, net rating-wise, and dropped 10 spots offensively and dropped 10 spots defensively. They got to improve. They got to turn this around, and I think a lot of it is going to be on JB Bickerstaff's shoulders, on making some tough decisions and playing the right lineups, playing the right guys, the right amount of minutes with the right people. I think that's going to come down to him as well. He's going to have to make tough decisions at a certain point. We can't keep going like this. So let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil. How do you feel about the Pistons have played? How do you feel about how the Pistons have played, the last 6 games? What do you think they need to adjust? And are you concerned at all? Let me know. Again, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil. Coming up, I want to discuss how Jaden Ivey has looked since he's returned. Some good, some bad. He's looking better as the games go on. We'll talk about it coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. The season is heating up, and DoorDash has a way to keep fans in their bag the whole way through. Whether you're watching the highlights, the tunnel fits, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes the entire season more fun. Because every player has their bag, with DoorDash, fans have one too. DoorDash keeps your snacks stocked, your gear fresh, and your watch party vibes absolutely on point. Those late night interviews hit and suddenly you need chips at midnight? DoorDash is built exactly for that. If the group chat says pull up, DoorDash makes sure you show up prepared. Snacks, cups, even a phone charge for the friend who's always at 2%. That might be me, might not be. I won't confirm. From tip off to overtime, stay in your bag and order on DoorDash. Get snacks, drinks, and gear, whatever gets you through the season, delivered right to your door. DoorDash, in your bag all season long. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free to available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Jaden Ivey's return it was one of the most anticipated moments of the season. It was probably the most anticipated thing before the season, before everyone knew he wasn't going to be out to start the year. And then it was still the most anticipated thing throughout the year until he finally returned a week and a half ago. And I want to talk about how he's looked. I want to preface this with he is still on a minutes restriction. He is still working himself back into peak shape. He's still knocking off rust. Like, I get all of that. It's probably going to be, I'd say, probably another week and a half. And I think you'll start to see the minutes restriction maybe get lifted, and you can start seeing what you think he's going to be for the rest of the year. That's at least my hope. But he's played 7 games, excuse me. I want to talk about how he's looked. So overall during those 7 games, he's averaging 8 points a game on 54 true shooting. He's shooting 33% from beyond the arc, shooting 48% on twos. He's averaging 0.9 assists to 1.1 turnovers a game. And the team, if I can pull this back up real quick, the Pistons are plus 2.3 with him on the floor versus off so far. So, how has he looked? I want to start with the good. This last game against Milwaukee, I thought was the best he's looked all season long. Or not all season long. The last 7 games. Since he's come back, I think this is the best he's looked. He had 15 points on 5 of 10 shooting. He hit 2 of 5 of his threes. He got to the free throw line 3 times, hit all 3 of those shots. Had 6 rebounds. He was hustling on the glass. I love to see that. I think the main thing that you saw in this game against Milwaukee, which I'm hoping that this is what the team is realizing, and they're going to start putting him in these situations, because when they put him in these situations, he can have games like this. That's where he'll be at his best. And that is playing him off ball, having him play as a strictly off ball scorer, and minimizing at the very most you possibly can his on ball reps. Because he is the struggles you're seeing, we'll get to in like a few minutes. Those struggles are the same struggles we've seen from him in year 1, year 2, and year 3. It's the same thing. And it's the same thing I've told you guys after year 1, year 2, and year 3. He is really good. He is a really good off-ball scorer. He's very good playing off of other guys that can create offense. He's very good at attacking, retreating defense. He's very good at attacking gaps. He's very athletic. He's very explosive. The explosiveness, by the way, in case anyone was wondering about that, I still see it. He's still very quick. Like, I don't think he's lost his explosion. He still looks very fast. But in this game against Milwaukee, I think, one, Milwaukee playing a zone defense, he's someone that can kill his own defense, especially as an off-ball player. But 2, like I said, they played him with Cade a lot. They played him with Danis a lot. They played him with Cade and Asar a lot. Like, his most used lineup in this game, now it was only 3 minutes, but like one of his main lineups was Tobias, Duren, Asar, Cade, and Ivey. And I think that's probably one of the lineups that everyone's looking forward to seeing, because that's what a lot of people seem to believe that the starting lineup was going to be at the beginning of the year. I'm interested to see, do they eventually go to that in a few weeks after you see how important Duncan's shooting is, or do you go with Ivey? I think it's a legit conversation, but we'll see which way they go. Either way, that lineup, they played really well in those 3 minutes. It was only 3 minutes of insanely tiny sample size. But the point I'm bringing this up for is he didn't play a lot of his minutes without Cade. That's my point. He didn't play a lot of his minutes without Cade and Asar. He didn't play a lot of his minutes without Danis and Asar. He didn't play a lot of his minutes without Danis. He was playing consistently with another ball handler, which allowed him to attack gaps in his own defense. You kick the ball out to Ivey, he had 2 corner threes he hit, which were big time off of Asar driving into the paint against his own defense. He kicks it out to Ivey. Ivey drains it. Perfect. Love to see it. Asar has another one when he attacks the catch, gets to the middle of the floor, swings it to Ivey in the corner. Ivey pump fakes, drives the gap, and then he finishes with a floater. All of that stuff, that's where Ivey has looked his best since he's come back. And that's where he's looked his best throughout his career. When he's attacking rotating defense, where he's attacking off the ball. And they used him in that scenario, or in that position, for 90% of this game. For 90% of this game, that's where he was used. So I think he's showing how he can very much help this team. There is a clear way that he makes this team better. The whole argument of that I've seen people have, oh, this team's better without Ivey. No, this team's better with Ivey. I think there's an argument, depending on how you use him, for both. If you use him this way, if you allow him to just be an off-ball scorer and have him channel some of that energy defensively, I think you've seen spurts. There's been times he's been very good defensively. There's also been some times where he's been flat out bad defensively, especially like him and Stu got into it 2 games ago when he just completely missed the switch and allowed a backdoor layup. So Ivey's never going to be a good defender, but channel some of that energy so you can have some of those. He had a steal in this game or a deflection in this game. He just fights over a DHO really hard, and now it's a deflection, it's a loose ball, whether the Pistons come up with it or not. Like, you'll take those plays if you can get also what he's bringing to you offensively, off the ball. Fantastic. That's where he'll make this team better. The Ivey that can be a release valve, that if a team doubles Cade and he throws it over to Ivey on the wing and now he's tacking downhill 4 and 3 and hopefully getting to the basket, okay, that's an Ivey you'd like to have. If it's Cade or Asar or even Duren driving and they kick out to Ivey, a catch and shooter that also is capable of pump faking, then attacking the closeout, getting to the basket, that's an Ivey that is very valuable. That's something that they need for this team, a guy that can do those things. So if they minimize his ball handling or his on-ball reps and put him into that role, I think he very clearly makes this team better. They would have won this game, I think, against Milwaukee yesterday if they played Ivey Now, obviously, I'm not saying if they played because like JB should have done it. Obviously, I understand JB can't. He's on a minutes restriction. I'm not blaming JB at all. I'm saying if he wasn't on a minutes restriction, if he plays last night and closes instead of Caris LeVert, I think the Pistons win because he was shredding the zone. LeVert had multiple turnovers against the zone. That was terrible, and he's nowhere near as a good shooter as Ivey, it seems to be. He was 1 of 8 in this game. Ivey was 2 of 5. He was beating the zone. And not only, again, like I said, with catch and shoot threes, but also attacking the gaps. He's too quick. He's too explosive. If you play a zone against Ivey, especially off of kickouts, he's going to be able to get to those gaps. So if he was off the minutes restriction, I think they would have beat Milwaukee yesterday. And I think that has to do with, obviously, him playing well, but also JB, which now we'll segue into some of the negative. JB used him in the right way that he wasn't using him the first 4 games. Like, we've talked about how bad the Ivey and Caris LeVert minutes were. Like, I'll bring up the minutes again. In the 61 minutes they've played together, they're a minus 9.83. It's not good. It's not good. They get destroyed in their minutes because neither of them are point guards. But when you played Ivey with Cade and play Cade with Dan, or play Ivey with Dennis, like Ivey and Cade minutes, and this is very small sample size, but it matches the eye test. That's why I'm bringing it up. Ivey and Cade minutes, they're plus 8.67 because he's playing with another guard. You play him. I haven't looked at this, so I could be wrong. Let's look at this one. Ivey and Dennis. Yeah, I mean, a very, very tiny sample size, 19 minutes, but plus 31. Let's look at Ivey Asar. I haven't looked at this one. The only one I looked at before was Ivey and Cade. Yeah, Ivey and Asar, plus 17.41. So you play him with somebody else that you can allow to run the offense, set the offense up, and just allow Ivey to be the off-ball scorer. He's fantastic. First few games, that wasn't the case. They were asking him to create with the ball in his hands. They were asking him to be a primary initiator, and it wasn't going well for him, I don't think. They weren't winning his minutes, especially in that game against which game was that? Is it Boston? I'm remembering. Yeah, the game against Boston and then the game against Orlando, I thought was the 2 ones where they just used him so incorrectly, put him in a position where he's obviously not going to play well, and it hurts the team. And against Boston and Orlando, he had 7 points and 3 points, no assist, and 4 turnovers throughout those games. Why? Because they had him on the ball. They had him trying to create. And that's just not what Ivey is. As soon as everyone can accept, and it seems like the coaching staff adjusted, that he is an off-ball scorer. He is an off-ball scoring guard. That helps this team. That they need someone like that. He'll be great. He'll be great in that role for them. Like, there was one possession in this fourth quarter against Milwaukee where at the beginning of the fourth quarter, I believe, guys are off the floor. They give Ivey the ball to try to attack his own at the top of the key. He's running the offense. He tries to drive, attack 2 guys, and he ends up turning the ball over. Now Milwaukee gets a bucket. I was sitting there like, stop. Like, we know what he's good at. He's shredding them in this other area, attacking the gaps. Just put him in that area. So I say all this to basically say I think Ivey's looked overall, like the athleticism, looked good. I think he still looks just as explosive. The shot, I think, overall looks pretty good. I'd like to see him. There's a few shots, actually, I feel like he's passed up at times. I'd like to see him shoot more. But overall, I think the shot looks fine. It was really good against Milwaukee. I think especially earlier, like that game against Indiana, it looked really good. Defensively, I think it's going to be a work in progress, but I think it's always going to be a work in progress with him. I think the main thing that I'm seeing answered, which is really the main point of how has Ivey looked, all that really matters here is, does he make the team better? And I think the very clear answer from the first 7 games is he very much makes the team better if you play him in his right role. In the games that you don't play him in his right role, you will have people complaining about him because he's going to turn the ball over and he's not going to create offense. You try and make him a backup point guard, which I think is just a cardinal sin, by the way, by Trajan Langdon. I love Trajan. I think he's done a great job. But I think it's a cardinal sin by Trajan Langdon to walk into this year again without a backup point guard. I think that's just utterly unacceptable. After you saw how much Schroeder changed, and then to try to pin it back on Ivey, you're putting Ivey in a bad spot if he would have played at the beginning of the year. You're putting him in a bad spot at times this year when he has come back to make him play that. I think it's just a cardinal sin. But how has Ivey looked? I think he's looked fine. I think you're happy to see that the athleticism has looked as good. And I think everyone should be happy to see that when you play him with Cade and Asar and Duren and even Dennis in a limited sample size, when he's allowed to play in his role, he's impacting the game in a positive way. And they're winning the minutes. That's all you need to see. And that's all I needed to see. If they continue to use him that way, I think everyone's cool with Ivey. And I think Ivey very much helps this team. It's when they start trying to make him do other things, I think that's when it'll become a problem. And then the Pistons will just have to decide, is Ivey in that role? Is that something that you want to invest in? I think that should be really the question at this point for them. Because they're going to, obviously there's a contract year for him. That's what they got to answer. Okay, I think it's clear. This is the role for him. This is where he excels. Is that a role that we want to invest in? If that's not what you want to invest in, then you have your answer. But if it is something that you want to invest in, you have the answer on the roster. And it's Ivey. So that's where I'm at 7 games in. That's where I'm at with him. Let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil, how you guys feel about how Ivey's looked since he's come back. But coming up, I'm planting my flag right here. This is where I'm at. The Pistons need to and should trade for a 4, I think, before the trade deadline pretty soon, I think. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. As a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can also bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Go Lions tonight. Hope they win. Hope you guys are listening to this podcast after a win. But that's with FanDuel. The game moves fast, and so can you. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. That's another great way to support the podcast. I feel like this game against Milwaukee confirmed, like if you were 50-50 with this, which I feel like I was, let me not lie to you guys. I probably was more 60-40, 65-35, leaning towards making a trade for a 4. This game against Milwaukee basically confirmed it for me. Because what you'll see in this game against Milwaukee for the Pistons, who was the Pistons' highest three-point taker? Who do you guys think it was? It wasn't Cade. It wasn't Dennis. It wasn't Ivey. It wasn't Javante. It wasn't any of these guys. Their highest three-point taker was Tobias Harris. He had 8 threes taken in this game. And obviously, I don't think that's going to be the case when Duncan's in the lineup, but this point I'm about to make rings true, whether it's Duncan in the lineup or not. The Bucks, and we're seeing other teams do it, are running zone against the Pistons a lot. And the way to beat zone is not only three-point shooting. I've made that clear. I posted like 6 clips of Asar busting the zone by attacking gaps, getting to the paint, making reads. I'm completely aware of that. But you also do need guys that when you do penetrate the defense and then kick it out, that they are then able to hit these threes. Now, Tobias in this game hit 5 of 8 threes. So he had a good game shooting from deep. And I'm not making this point simply just because I think the Pistons are going to see zone every single game, so they need a 4 just to beat the zone. No, that's not my point. My point is that the need for what I'm about to bring up was put on the big screen and really popped off the screen because of how Milwaukee played them. And that is the Pistons need a 4-man that is a high-volume three-point shooter. They just do. And with Cade, we're in year 5 now, and Cade is still inconsistent at the very best from beyond the arc. Duren is not going to be a three-point shooter, and Asar is not going to be a three-point shooter. You make up for that by having a Duncan Robinson, a Malik Beasley, like that kind of thing. You make up for it with that. But to reach peak performance, you need Malik, Duncan Robinson type, and then you need someone at your 4 who is letting threes go like that. If they're open, they let it go. You give space, they let it go. They are deadly shooters that draw defenders out, and when they don't, when the defenders decide to tag down on cuts or rolls by Asar or Duren, you're making them pay over and over and over again. Tobias is not that. And I'm not saying they have to trade Tobias. Having Tobias as a backup 4 would be fantastic. I'm not saying trade Tobias. What I am saying is that it's clear to me that what the Pistons need, and this has been the case since the offseason, but now that the Pistons are 17-5 and I think they could really make a run, I think they need to go get this. Tobias has never been in his career a high-volume three-point shooter. The most he's ever taken in a game or in a season is 5.6 all the way back in 2018. The last 4 years, he's at 3.6, 3.7, 4.4, 3.8, 3.4. It's not what he does. That's not what Tobias is. Can he shoot threes? Yes. Is he a high-volume type of guy? Does he want to be taking threes like that? No. That's not what he wants to be doing. Is he an incredible three-point shooter? No. Again, is he capable of hitting threes? Yeah, he is. But no one would categorize, I don't think, Tobias as a knockdown three-point shooter. That's not what he is. He can hit threes, and he's respectable. You have to, I'd say, pay a little respect to him. You don't want to just leave him wide open all the time. But even you see it against the zone, and you see it at other times throughout the year. Tobias does not want to take 5 or 6, 7, 8 threes a game. So when you kick it out to him, there's times where he hesitates and then turns it into a post-up instead. And the post-ups, the mismatches against Tobias in the post, they're automatic. He's been great in that regard. And Tobias himself is good. He's averaging 15 on 58 true shooting. This is not me saying Tobias isn't good. I'd like to keep Tobias. But what this team needs is something that Tobias doesn't provide. Keep Tobias, make him a sixth man, make him the guy coming off the bench. But what they need at the starting 4 position is somebody like, I'll go ahead and throw the name out. They need someone like MPJ. They need someone like MPJ that if you give him a sliver of space, that ball's going up. And he's going down 40% of the time. He's going to get 9 threes up. If you give him any type of space, he's going to drain it. You now have Duncan and a guy like that who is a movement shooter. You can run off-ball sets for, and he can bring that type of gravity to a team that has 2 non-shooters and a guy at the point guard position that's a little inconsistent three-point shooting-wise. That's the kind of guy they need. They need a guy who just lets it go and is unfazed by contest because of his height and his length and his high release speed or high release height. The height of his release, I think, would have been a better way of saying that. But yeah, that's who I'm looking at. That's the type of player they need. Lauri Markkanen does the same thing, but I think Lauri would be more expensive. But I'd take Lauri too. Like that type of player, someone who, if you play a zone, if you leave him open, it's killing you. And if Ausar or Duren or Cade drives and kicks out to him, you've messed up. Guys that don't, I think it's really good that guys like that, the 2 guys I just mentioned as well, they don't hold the ball long. They don't need the ball in their hands to dribble, and stall the offense. There was a number that came out from someone I follow in the Brooklyn Nets. I think it was a Brooklyn Nets beat writer. MPJ, the amount of time he holds onto the ball, 2.3 seconds. He makes decisions fast. He doesn't hold the ball, try to ISO. He's coming off a screen, letting it go, passing, or catching and shooting, or driving and scoring. He's catching the ball on a catch and shooting, or driving. And I do, since I brought up MPJ so much, I know people want me to focus on that a little bit. If the Pistons were to have been rumored, I saw Bleacher Report say the Pistons should go after MPJ. I believe it was an article today. There is a part of me that is a little bit concerned that it's because of Jordy Fernandez, who is, I think, one of the best coaches in the league. I think he's done a great job of using MPJ as a back screener. He's moving nonstop. He's been a great off-ball mover. He's running off screens. He's setting backdoor screens. He's cutting. He's running. Like, he's moving incredibly well, and I question whether JB would put him in those situations. So that is a little bit concerning to me. But like a guy like an MPJ, I think they desperately need. They need a guy like Lauri Markkanen. They need a guy who is going to get up 7, 8 threes a game and make defenses pay to when they pay attention to Ausar or Duren. That's what they need. They don't need a guy that doesn't really want to get the 3 up and kind of operates in the between game and isn't feared by defenses as much as a guy who's just going to kill you with 5, 6 threes. Like Tobias made 5 threes yesterday, and it felt like he was uncomfortable on at least 3 of them. Like he didn't want to actually have to take them. But because of where the Pistons are at and the kind of roster they have, he has to do it. And I don't think he really wants to. I think if you watch the game, you see he's hesitant to do so. Which, again, Tobias, really good. 15 on 58 true shot. I think he's been really good for them. I'm not saying you have to get rid of Tobias. I'd rather keep Tobias. I just don't think that he is the best scenario for this team's peak. And I think most people agree. He's not the best option for the peak scenario of this team at the starting 4 spot. Moving to the bench, I think he'd still be incredibly impactful off of that. You'd have 2 really good 4s finally. And then you'd have a starting 4 that provides the level of shooting, spacing, and off-ball gravity that you need with Cade, Ausar, and Duren as your core. That's what I think. So let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil. Do you guys agree with this, disagree with this? But that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. I'll catch you guys later. Stay safe out there, and peace out, everybody.